policy work ever since I graduated from St. Michael's College in 1986 as a poli-sci major. And certainly coming off this election, this very busy couple of months and week full of tension last week. It's delightful to see you all tonight and joining me for the first of the panel, which is government law and policy. How appropriate to kick off our Career Symposium for St. Michael's College students, alumni, and parents. So welcome everyone. I will be your moderator this evening, along with John Zerlo from the class of 1960, and the two of us serve on the St. Michael's College Alumni Board of Directors. So we're delighted to be here and we hope you find this panel great. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our three panelists this evening, and they will then give a 5-minute overview of what they do right now and how they got to what their journey was like, and give you some hints and tips and tidbits to help you on your journey as well. So Liam Cahill is a legislative aide for the Massachusetts House of Representatives, and he just graduated last May. So congratulations, Liam. It's great to have you part of the alumni. We also have Kathleen Korby Wells from the class of 86, which is my class. It's great to have you on board. Kathy is the support enforcement officer for the state of Connecticut Judicial Department. So wonderful to have Kathy with us today. And finally, Kathleen Insley from the class of 96. She's a lawyer in her own practice in Plattsburgh, New York, and will also have some great, I think, information for those of you thinking about law school and careers after law school. So with that, I'm going to kick things over to Liam to give his 5-minute overview. Liam?
Yeah, it's great to be here tonight with everybody. It's a little bizarre. I was saying earlier that last year I was in your shoes as a student looking for a career, and now it's really great to be here and offer any help that I can. So yeah, I'm a legislative aide in the Massachusetts House of Representatives. What I basically do is I am on the constituent side of everything for the state representative I work for. I deal with all constituent issues. I work with state senators, our member of Congress in Massachusetts, and we really try to be as expeditious and do the best we can to help people during this trying time. I also do a lot of legislative tracking. So any bills, amendments that are coming up, I kind of prepare a brief summary for the state representative and reach out to constituents if they have any issues about or concerns about the legislation. One of the reasons that I got really excited about this was through St. Mike's. I did a variety of internships. I actually interned for a state senator in Massachusetts, and I also interned for a member of Congress. And through that, I was able to really get the tools needed to have experience in the legislative process and in government that really has been able to help me today. And I started my job search last January in person, like job search typically happens, and then COVID hit and my job search got completely blown up. And I had to make a pretty quick switch from doing everything in person informational interviews and meetings to everything being online. So one of the things that I was able to do is I was really able to rely heavily on the network that I had built up through the contacts through St. Mike's alumni and through people in around the district where I'm working now. So one of the things that I was doing is I was really interested in working in the state legislature because it's a great entry-level job where you're able to gain a lot of experience in a variety of different issue and areas. And so I reached out to my state representative and I said, hey, I just graduated from St. Michael's College with a degree in political science. I'm very interested in working in the state legislature, and if you know of anything, let me know. So about a week later, I got an email from his chief of staff, and they had a job opening, and they basically said, hey, we want to interview you for this. We know you haven't applied, but we want you to be able to, we think that you'd be a great addition. So I interviewed, and then I get a call from them saying I got the job. So one of the things, I worked a lot with Tim Birmingham in the Career Center, and he said, it's all going to happen like that. And so within a week, I went from still job searching to you're starting the following Monday. So I had a really quick turnaround, but I've been in this job for about a month. Absolutely love it. It's great experience. I know I've already been able to develop relationships with my coworkers, albeit virtually because we are working from home. But I just can't get over how well St. Mike's prepared me for this, and really encouraging me to do as many internships as I can and gain the experience needed.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thanks, Liam. The things happening quickly is you're absolutely right about that. I remember years ago when I was interested in doing some campaign work, and I was on vacation in Maine. I just walked in the office in Portland and said, "Hey, I'd love to work on your campaign." And I'm telling you, it was like 2 later, they said, "We want you up here." And I drove back to Arlington, packed my car, moved up to Maine for 3 months to work on a campaign. So a great experience. And just as you said, these jobs, when they come your way, present some really cool opportunities. So thanks for sharing your story. I'm going to turn things over now to Kathleen Korby Wells. Again, Kathy's from the class of '86, Support Enforcement Officer for the State of Connecticut Judicial Department. Kathy, please share us your story.
Hello. So yes, I'm Kathleen Wells. I graduated with Susie in 1986. I was an elementary education major at St. Mike's. When I arrived at St. Mike's in 1982, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do. I picked education because I come from a family of educators, and it seemed like my dad was a guidance counselor actually in the high school that I went to. So he was a very happy person, happy with his career choice, good life. I thought, okay. But I hated my student teaching experience. I hated it. And one day, one of the little third graders in my class looked at me and said, "Ms. Corby, you don't like being a teacher, do you?" And that just hit me in my heart, because I thought, oh, I cannot go on with this and have children feeling that way. So after graduation, my father begged me to not base my decision on my student teaching experience. And I agree with him. I agreed with him then, but I just became, at that point, I became a waitress and a swim coach. And those jobs seemed pretty insignificant. However, if it wasn't for those two jobs, I don't know that I would have gotten the job I have now. The connections that I made as a waitress and as a swim coach led me to where I am now. I am a child support enforcement officer for the Judicial Department of the State of Connecticut. So I work for the court in the court. My job is a combination of a collection officer. So I focus on collecting court-ordered child support, medical insurance, medical expenses, daycare expenses for families. I'm also, if you didn't know better when you walked into the court, you would think I'm a prosecutor. I'm not, but I sometimes appear that way in my role. And also a social worker. So I wear a lot of different hats in one day. I would say the collection officer part is the least fun. When I started this, I had no background in law, no background in law enforcement. I was told by a colleague of mine that it was during my interview, and I'll tell you how I even got the interview, that my personality and the fact that I was a waitress meant that I could be successful at this job. I got the interview because of a friend I made while I was a swim coach, and he had a father who was a supervisor in a child support enforcement office, and there were job openings that I knew nothing about. He's like, "Hey, go interview." So I did, and here I am 30 years later, 30 years or more later. Within the scope of my job, I have a limited statutory authority that allows me to present cases in court. I file motions such as contempts and modifications. I assist in getting those motions served as well as serving them myself. I communicate with the parties before court. We call it negotiating, but you're not really negotiating. You're gathering information, you're presenting that information to the court. I call it setting the table. So I've been told I'm really good at this, but we present in front of family support magistrates. So they're not judges, but they appear to be judges. And I've gotten really good at providing them the info they need in an organized, logical manner that leaves very little question why the parties are in front of the court that day. There's a lot of work that goes into a case from point A, where there's a child support obligation, to point B, where you're actually in front of the court, either enforcing or modifying the action. I like to tell people a lot about what I don't do, because when they hear my title, it kind of encompasses everything they think. But I do not get involved in custody or visitation issues. I do not get involved with DCF. I know DCF is called a lot of different things in different states, but that doesn't stop people from asking me about those issues. And that's kind of where the social worker hat comes in. I need to be able to answer or direct people on how to help with those issues. I can't just say, oh, I don't know. So I also deal with a lot of people that have mental health and substance abuse issues. And I need to be able to direct them to resources that can help them if they want the help. And that is a huge barrier in my job as far as collecting child support. Again, I've been with child support officer for over 30 years. So I got this job in January 1987, so 6 months after I graduated, and I'm still here. And I know that doesn't happen a lot these days where people start a career and stay with it forever. I'm going to be there forever. I was, on a side, I was married in 1991. I had 2 children. They're my biggest accomplishment in life. I've wanted to be a mom for as long as I can remember. I never really knew what I wanted to do in a career. I wasn't never sure, but I wanted to be a mom. So that happened, and that was good stuff. As far as Susie wanting to know about my run for office, in 2017, I've never been involved in politics other than interested in it as a citizen. But in July of 2017, a good friend of mine who had been on the Board of Education here in my town, and she'd been on it for 8 years, she called me and said, we need you to run. And I'm like, run for what, how? I had no idea what I was doing. And I thought, okay, this is, my children are all grown. Let's learn about this. Let's do it. And I did it. And I won. So I've been on the Board of Ed here in Plainville, Connecticut since fall of 2017. And it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Because the issues that come across our table are so important. And I feel like the weight of the world sometimes. It's the only thing that keeps me up at night. Now with COVID, it's been even more scary because now, the powers that be in the schools literally have the lives of the children in their hands and the lives of the staff in their hands with their decisions. So, yeah, I don't know that I'll ever run again. But that's that.
Thank you for running, and thank you for your service, Kathy. And for those of you who may not have picked up, Kathy mentioned she was a swim coach. Kathy was on the St. Michael's College swim team. So great connection there in terms of, and I know many of you out there may also be involved with sports, but there's also that great connection there to make, and your networking that obviously will continue. So I'm going to turn things over next to Kathleen Insley, who, as I mentioned before, is a lawyer in Plattsburgh and has her own practice, and from the class of '96. So Kathy, if you can share us your story, and then we'll go into Q&A right after that.
Okay, thanks, Susie. Yeah, I was not on the swim team at St. Mike's, but I was on the volleyball team, but I was a walk-on, so it wasn't really all that impressive. But anyway, I'm an attorney in Plattsburgh with a partner. I've been practicing here for be 21 years in January that I was admitted to the bar in New York. Like Kathy, I had a parent who was an educator, another parent who worked in the educational setting. It never really occurred to me to go into that field. And unlike Kathy, I knew what I wanted to do actually before I even got to St. Mike's. So, when I was at St. Mike's, I became a poli-sci major, and I also took as many law-related courses, which I believe were mostly Professor Hughes was teaching those classes at the time, that I could. And when I got to law school, I remember there was one specific law professor who thought it was kind of a joke that most of the entering law students had been poli-sci majors. His theory was that, the more broad you can make your education and not narrow it down to what you think is the right major to put, to jettison you off to law school, the better off you'll be. You'll get a greater depth of understanding of society. But I have to disagree with them. And looking back, I mean, when I took those courses in poli-sci, I feel like those were really good courses at St. Mike's to prepare me, along with the rest of the liberal arts. And maybe it was because I was from a liberal arts background that I feel like I had that breadth of understanding and education already. So I feel like I was really well prepared for that going into law school. And I wanted to, I wanted to be a lawyer. I'm not really sure exactly how that came about. I did have family members that I really respected and looked up to, that I felt were very confident, self-possessed. And I think, I don't know if it was a chicken and egg thing, but they were lawyers. So, whatever that magic was, I kind of wanted to capture it. And as I look back on it a little bit, maybe that education piece from my dad and my mom too were in there somewhere, because the part I enjoy most about my job is educating my clients, because I really do feel like, especially in my field, knowledge is power. And as many jokes as people tell about lawyers, they do see them as people who have had a really strong education, have the ability to read and synthesize and translate and understand things. And it's job security to have that kind of stigma attached, but at the same time, I don't like having clients who are being steamrolled or taken advantage of or anything like that. I like educating my client as to what their rights are. And in that way, they can be a team member with me to help advocate for their position, rather than just putting everything on me. That's my least favorite kind of client, is they put everything on me. They don't really think about their case, and they just expect me to do all the thinking and all the work for them, where I prefer to have kind of a team approach. And I think that education piece is part of it. I like them to have that same knowledge, because it gives them that same empowerment to advocate for themselves and help me advocate for them. So I've been practicing in Plattsburgh for, like I said, about 21 years in different capacities. I've been under a principal attorney. I've been on my own. I've been with a partner. And I do a wide variety of things, because in a small town like Plattsburgh, it's a little difficult to concentrate in one area. And I also think that would be a little dull for me. I really like having a broad variety of things that I do. So I've enjoyed my practice tremendously. I'm really happy with where I'm at. I'm at a point in the last few years where, I have a good base here. I'm from Plattsburgh, so a lot of people already know me, with a teacher dad who's taught for 35 years and a mom who worked in the school system for 20 some odd years. If they don't know me, they know one of them. So it's a nice ability to connect. It wasn't where I planned to be. I actually wanted to go back to Vermont and practice, but for a variety of reasons, that became difficult. My husband was working there, so I really wanted to, who was my classmate at St. Mike's, and I really wanted to settle in there and make it easy for him not to commute. But it turns out there was a job in Plattsburgh, wasn't that far away. So, we skipped across the lake, settled back down in here, and he commuted for a little bit. And then he commuted to different places. But he's always been the commuter, unfortunately for him. But I've been pretty happy and settled here, and I just really enjoyed it. I really did. I do think being a poli-sci major was helpful in getting me started, because the more you can be exposed to reading statutory law or codes or case law, you're just that much more familiar with it when you get to law school, because there is a ton of reading involved and a lot of cases you got to go through, and a lot of laws you got to read through in order to get through law school, to get through the bar exam, and to start your career. So I think St. Mike's did a great job for that. Among other things, it was a great experience overall.
Great. Thank you so much, Kathy. Great to be there as well. And, in the work that I've done, I often educate folks too. I'm the Chief Policy Officer for the American Society of Hematology. And so I work with our membership, and we bring our members up to Capitol Hill, well, now virtually up to Capitol Hill, and to members of the administration, different agencies. And we always have to prep our members, right, to be sure they stay on message, and to actually teach them about the process.
Marv.
So it's fun, and I was a poli-sci major too. And one thing I did too, speaking of internships, I spent a semester my junior year in Washington, and that really was a wonderful eye-opening experience. I knew I wanted to come back to DC, and here I am, how many years later. I've had little different jobs. I've, with associations, I worked on Capitol Hill, I worked in federal agencies, but, it's just educating folks. And I think Liam too, with your constituent services, getting to know people and explaining the process to them. Kathy, your work of educating clients and trying to get them the right resources. There's a lot of common themes here that we have, which I think is pretty cool. And while we love the panel, what we do, government, policy, law, there's a lot of career opportunities out there. So the Q&A, if folks want to put a
As long as it's one way.
chat box, okay, that would be great. And it looks like we have a question coming in right now. Do you have any tips for the first-year law students, in particular, students who may be unsure as to which field of law they would like to pursue? So Kathleen Insley, I'm going to ask you to answer that one.
So yeah, I mean, that's my only tip would be to keep an open mind. You know, I went into law school pretty convinced that I was going to want to work in the public interest, either with some legal aid society, or I interviewed with the EEOC and the Department of Labor. So I was really very interested in helping. I mean, really, law is all about protecting people's rights. It could be private, it could be private right, it could be a right that's established through a statute. But in the early days, I was really leaning towards that, you know, helping people who probably wouldn't, you know, in those settings that I was interviewing for, wouldn't be retaining their own private attorney. They would have an attorney through an agency like the EEOC, or get help through an administrative process, which is, you know, what the Department of Labor or EEOC might do. So really, that was my thought going in. And although I interviewed for some of those jobs out in the Buffalo area, which is where I went to law school, I didn't end up getting an offer for those jobs. So what ended up happening is, you know, I went into private practice, and I thought for sure I'd be working for someone else, supervising me until such time as I maybe became their partner. And it just turned out that things didn't pan out that way, and ended up going solo, which isn't something I never anticipated either. And once I was solo, I thought, well, this is pretty comfortable and cool. But then you meet someone who is of like mind with you, and you end up partnering with them, and that helps with your overhead, and it helps being able to bounce ideas off, and it helps with being able to cover each other if your schedules don't permit you to do the work that you're trying to fit in your day. So all this to say that you can go into law school with one area in mind, and that might be something you follow all the way through into your career. But you might end up going in like a lot of careers, you might end up going in a lot of different directions, and that's okay, as long as you are open-minded.
Button there isn't clicked.
John's trying to steal my thunder a little bit.
I'll
so-
undo it then there. Okay. How about
But yeah, I think the important thing is open mind. See where you know the influence of your professors and your classmates take you, the networking and the community that you're in takes you. And then once you're in the field, you may find that something else makes more sense for you. I mean, geographically, I really wanted to be, like I said, in Vermont. That didn't end up working out. So I ended up back in my hometown, which was really ended up turning out beautifully. And I've enjoyed being back here. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Kathy. That was great. And I grew up in Buffalo, New York, so glad to hear you went to UB. We had another question just come in. I'm currently a congressional intern in New York 21. However, I'm considering a degree in environmental studies. I'm really passionate about policy. Liam, how would you recommend I go forward if I want to pursue a job at the New York State Legislature?
Yeah, so one of the things that I would recommend is, first of all, reach out to your local legislator or a legislator on a committee that you're really interested in. I mean, the representative I work for, it's kind of a mundane committee, so we don't really have a lot of that. But I know that there are a lot of state legislatures that are passing environmental legislation, like in the Massachusetts legislature, where we have a big omnibus climate change package that we're in the middle of debating. So one of the things that I would recommend is definitely reach out to the chair of the committee for environmental committee in the New York State Legislature. It doesn't hurt to send an email. It will also show your interest in working in the legislature and specifically on environmental policy. And then if they do follow up, they might have some other ideas for you as well. I know a bunch of my friends, not just at St. Mike's, but at other schools as well, they've been reaching out to legislators saying, hey, I'm really interested in environmental policy and I'm interested in working in the state legislature. Would you be able to talk for 5 minutes and just try to get your name out there and circulate it? Because a lot of the jobs in the state legislature are kind of through connections. So specifically, like I get job postings all the time in the Massachusetts legislature. And what they want is they want somebody that's interested in working in the legislature, and they want somebody that kind of has a grasp of the policymaking process. And I think being a congressional intern, that is fantastic, because you really will be able to have a great understanding of the intricacies of policy work that state legislatures really want nowadays.
Thanks, Liam. That was a great response there. Kathy Korby Wells, I had a question come in, and since you talked about running for office, and I know you said you're not sure you'd do it again, but the question was, what do you think is the best starting point to launch a career in office at the state, local, or federal level? Got some feedback you'd like to share?
Well, I would definitely start at the local level, because it's just more manageable, and you already know the players, the other people. Typically, if you're interested in it, you've already gotten to know who your town council members are and who your Board of Ed members are. And so starting local is really the place to start. It's probably the most important place of all, as far as impacting your community. But once you got into one of those positions, you would learn and you would meet others within the state, and it would just kind of snowball from there. I am not a politician, so I did it because someone asked me to do it, and I've learned a lot. And of course, learning things is never bad, but I don't enjoy people lying to my face, which happens. I'm so naive. I was shocked when people did it. I'm like, what is the benefit of that? But those are things that people learn how to, they understand why people do it, I guess, and they learn how to finesse through that. And it's all very important. So.
Thanks, Kathy. And, kind of building on that question, I'd love to ask each of the panelists, what were some of your key takeaways when you first entered the workforce? I'm going to start with Liam, since you just entered the workforce.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is definitely a little different because I kind of met my coworkers on Zoom, but I actually just met one of them in person the other day, and I was like, oh, I've been working with you for a month now, and it's nice to finally meet you. No, but yeah, I mean, I think that the thing is, they love when you ask questions. One of the first things that they told me when I started was, ask a gazillion questions about everything. We just want to make sure that you do the right thing, and they'd rather have you ask the questions and get it right than do something wrong and then you have to redo it. So I think that was the biggest thing, was that they were really asking a lot of questions. Try to establish your network within this. Like for me, I've been reaching out to other legislative aides, just trying to introduce myself, gain the relationship as much as I can, to make the work more seamless and not be, oh, this random person from Representative Paracella's office is reaching out to me. Who's that? So now I'm able to reach out with the know the legislative aides for the representatives from the area that we're in.
Thanks, Liam. Kathy Korby Wells. You can answer.
I think the question thing, I'm gonna build on top of that. I think that's really, really important. Ask away. There's never, like you've heard a million times, there's no stupid question. Ask, because people are really grateful, and most people want to answer you and give you the answer to help better the world we're working within. Also building relationships. I know in my career, I started in the Stamford, Connecticut office, found myself in Hartford, and now I'm in Middletown. And all of the relationships I made, not only within my state agency, but in the different court buildings within the other agencies, have helped me do my job. So I would say questions and communicate and build relationships.
Wonderful. And the other Kathy, how about the key takeaways for when you first entered the workforce?
Yeah, I'd say I have to echo what's been said about asking questions in the legal field. Unless some people just go and hang out their shingle immediately. I'm always really impressed when attorneys come out of law school And especially if they go to an area where they are not from and they just start a practice on their own, I'm not sure how they get through it. You know, I had an older attorney who had hired me, so I had someone to talk to there. I had colleagues. We have a really great, friendly legal community here. So, you know, I was able to seek the advice and subtly find out answers to things, even in the presence of clients early on, where I was able to pick up things from my colleagues in the law. So definitely asking questions is important. Never be afraid to feel stupid once you've done a little research on the issue before. So you have an idea of what your answer might be. I mean, with the law, it's really important. A lot of times, and we forget this as attorneys, is the answer might be right there in black and white if you just read the actual law. It's one of those things that attorneys probably don't tell you very often, but we try not to read that law if we can avoid it. But a lot of times the answer is right there. It's either in a statute or it's in a case or a number of cases, or it's in an article, a scholarly article that you might find online from your bar association or a law firm. And there's so much available online now. It's very different from when I went to law school. But so I like to research and try to find the answer first myself, because, you know, I don't always trust the answer I'm going to get from a colleague anymore, especially at this point in my career. I'm at the point where I usually try to get those answers on my own, but don't be afraid to feel like you don't know what you're doing. I remember I was 6th or 7th year practicing, and I still was every day there were questions I didn't have answers to. There were areas of law where I was fuzzy, or there was something I didn't know how to do. And I had to just recognize that I had to be comfortable with that, because there's a lot of law out there. And if you're going to have practice where you do a lot of different things in your practice, and you have a broad array of fields that you work in, then you are going to feel dumb pretty regularly. So it's important to be comfortable with that, knowing that you're going to get to a place where you're going to know a lot more. You're going to maybe shrink down your focus on your practice a little bit, so that you're feeling pretty confident that you have the answer on the tip of your tongue at some point in your career. It won't be early on though, so be warned. Unless you do just one specific thing, working for a specific agency that handles certain things. I bet Kathleen probably knew her stuff pretty quickly once she got into that job, after the first several months, maybe a year. But for my type of law practice, it took a lot longer than that. So you just got to be comfortable with that lack of knowledge, just knowing that you got to push forward and find your answers.
Yeah, I think everyone always told me when you start a new job, it takes a year to feel fully comfortable. And I will attest to that, even with different jobs I've had, all, doing healthcare policy essentially. So we have time for a few more questions. It is, 6:30. I know we said it was going to be a half hour, but I think if our speakers can stay around for about another 5 minutes for additional questions, we can go that route. And John Zerlo, if there's anything you'd like to add in terms of your experience or pearls of wisdom, feel free to unmute yourself though first. Oh, John, we need you to unmute yourself. John, can you unmute yourself?
About that, I'm not so technically sound. How's that?
Perfect.
Liam, I'd like to ask you the question, what are your aspirations? Because I have one of my sons took the same path you did, and he started in college and started cutting newspaper clippings for a senator in the New York State Senate. And today he's the county exec here in our county, and he's been the exec for about 15 years. And I just want to offer that to you, because there are a lot of levels that you might entertain in your future. You're just starting, you're on the grassroots, and I know he was too, but you grow within your job there at the Massachusetts Senate or Assembly or Massachusetts government, as whatever you are there, and you grow and grow until you can land something. And there's a lot out there with a poli-sci background.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of the legislative aides like myself are recent college graduates, and most of the staff in the Massachusetts House and Senate are probably in their mid to late 20s and 30s. I'm probably going to stay in this job for a few years. I'm hoping to eventually go to law school, probably at night. just so that I can continue to work. And then eventually what a lot of people do is they either work for a state agency, like in the Massachusetts government, like our former chief of staff's now in the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, or they go work for a public affairs company or in government relations, because they want people that have that intricate knowledge of working in the legislature, have the relationships that you've built. And then a lot of them also run for office, which I mean is something that, you know, down the road I might do. My uncle is an elected official, so it's kind of in the family. But yeah, I mean, I've thought about it, but I mean, I think I was just so focused on getting my first job that now I'm just trying to get acclimated and then kind of see what happens. But I definitely have a path of potentially, you know, law school and then trying to see what else happens after that.
Great, super. Don't give up.
It
I've
looks
been
like
an elected official since 1960. I've been elected official since 1967.
Oh, wow.
I'm 82 now, and I'm still at it. And Kathleen Insley comes in my office whenever she wants to use the records of the county clerk. So it's been a great career, and it all started at St. Michael's.
oh, that's
I was
fantastic.
going to go to law school. I was going to attend law school, and my buddy who came to pick me up the morning of the LSATs, he says, "Come on, John, let's go." And you know what comes over you sometime? I said, "No, Norm, I'm not going." Decided I'm not going to go that route. He became an attorney in Plattsburgh, worked for the DA, and now is retired. And maybe I should have done that. Who knows? I took the wrong fork.
That's
Go
fantastic.
ahead, Susie.
Yeah, Kathy Insley, you were going to add something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to go back to Liam's plan, a potential plan for his career, is that one of the things I really enjoyed most about law school was that not everybody in my class was just, you know, right out of college, having graduated from undergrad. I found them definitely and I don't think I would have chosen a different path, but it would have been nice to have that option. But it was so great to have people who had worked for a little bit and then gone to law school, because you really felt that they had thought about it and made that choice, you know, with fully open eyes and knew what they wanted, rather than maybe being pressured to be there from outside external forces. But the people, I had people who were in their, you know, late 60s who were in my law school class. It was almost like a second career choice for them. And the people who had even worked for a year or two who came into law school the year I entered really enriched the discussion a lot, and that kind of life experience and maybe internship and clinical experience that I didn't really have that much of at St. Mike's, that kind of filled in the gaps a little bit, having those people around us younger, just out of college kids who were starting as 1Ls. It really provided such a better, well-rounded experience for us learning. So I think it's going to be great if Liam works for a little while and then goes to law school. He's going to find it, I think, easier, and just he's going to really help enrich the discussion and learning experience.
And I'll add that too. You know, I worked for quite a few years before I went back to graduate school, and you know, I would agree. It was so great to have a classroom of people just who had graduated, to those who had worked, you know, for a few years, and then those who were in a midst of career change, quite frankly, and wanted to go into policy. My master's is in public administration. So I'm a real advocate too for working first if you can before going off to school, although it's a difficult period we're in too in terms of finding jobs. So, you know, it may be that school right now is a better choice. But John, you had one more thing. We have to wrap up in a couple minutes, and I'm going to summarize things. But John, if you have one more thing to add, that'd be great.
Well, I think this is my first symposium, and I'm quite impressed. I'm certainly impressed with our three panelists, and we had a wide variety of questions and answers, and I think what students were following this tonight, I'm sure that it was quite an advantage for them. But yeah, I thought it was wonderful. I think the virtual aspect of it turned out to be quite successful. I know that with this pandemic, we were hurting a little bit and can't do it. And as you said earlier, Susie, it saved a lot of traveling, saved a lot of hotels, and it worked out well for our panelists, and I hope the students got a lot out of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just to summarize, put a bow on top of this box. You know, we talked, there were some themes here about asking questions. No question is stupid, you know, and I attest to that as well. To network, you know, the power of networking within, you know, wherever, your local community. But I also want to point out the St. Michael's College Alumni Network is a really great network to tap into, to talk to. You've got 3 great panelists here, as well as John and myself as your moderators. And I know I always love it when a St. Michael's College or a recent alum reaches out to me to brainstorm and kind of, you know, tap in and see what I'm doing and see if I have contacts. I always want to give back. And whenever I have a job opening, I immediately contact St. Michael's College and say, please post this, because I know the education you're getting is phenomenal and that you're taking advantage of internships and such. So keep that in mind. And then I think to kind of wind it down, and Kathy pointed to this, you know, all politics is local. So if you're interested in politics, if you're interested in policy, you know, start with your local community. And Liam mentioned it as well, if you want to get a start. And again, keep networking. Can't say that enough. But I think that's it for this evening. I want to thank my panelists, John and ours panelists, Liam, Kathy and Kathy. I think you shared some really great perspectives. And to all the students out there, alums and parents of students, thanks for participating. Don't hesitate to reach out. As I said, we love helping St. Michael's College students. And to students who are there, enjoy your last year. It's such a beautiful place. I miss it so much. And take it all in and really embrace your friendships and your wonderful teachers, professors, you know, and all the staff who work at St. Mike's. It's a real special place and will always be near and dear to my heart. I know that. So with that, have a wonderful evening and enjoy the rest of the symposium this week.
And congratulations to you, Susie. You did a great job moderating the panel. It was a super job. Thank you.
No problem at all. My pleasure.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Have a good night, all. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, Kathleen.